With the reveal of Horizon Forbidden West, we can't help but speculate on the many mysteries that await us. In this, some of the existing lore from Zero Dawn has seemed to take on a different tone than we had previously believed. With new context and perspective provided from the release trailer, we will look back in hopes of gleaming what may lie before us. We alluded to this possibility briefly in our trailer breakdown video, so if you'd like some additional background into what we will be discussing, be sure to watch that first. As we witnessed an unknown blight starving and suffocating the land, my thoughts instantly turned to Gaia's subordinate function, Demeter. Charged with restoring the Earth's plant life post-Zero Day, we weren't privileged to too much detailed information concerning the subfunction or its alpha, Naoto. However, there is one key feature from Horizon Zero Dawn that is directly correlated with Demeter, those being the metal flowers. Mechanically, these collectibles serve only to be found and later traded for goods in the Karja capital city of Meridian. Lore-wise though, they may have greater significance than we had predicted. These flowers began to appear after the fall of Gaia, when her subfunctions escaped to places unknown. First charted by a Nutaru botanist, these flowers served to promote seed germination in the surrounding area, including the indicative triangular flower formation that accompanies each flower. Upon closer inspection, we see that each flower contains a fragment of code. Interestingly, they only contain one thing: poetry. A rather peculiar happenstance, one that is further elaborated on by the governing AI of Firebreak, Cyan. When asked about the poetry, she says the following: "Unless the poetry is original, the only way it could have made it into such a system is through its programmer." This assumption by the AI is supported further by the lore, specifically data point Sobek Journal 71665R. In this, we learn a name, Naoto, presumed to be Demeter's alpha. We also learn that Naoto does indeed have an affinity for poetry, as he responds to Dr. Sobek's news of the Odyssey Project with the poem The Building of the Ship by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, a poet whose other works also appear in the code fragments of the Metal Flowers. In fact, all are authored by notable poets from different periods in human history. So now that we know how the poetry wound up in the code in the first place, we have to ask ourselves, why? As stated before, these flowers only began to appear after the unknown transmission that severed Gaia from her subfunctions, rendering them self-aware. From what we've seen from the subfunctions that Aloy has encountered, these subfunctions are reverting to their base programming. Unfortunately, without the governance of Gaia and no context to the overarching terraforming goals of ZD, they became dangerous. Hades striving to end all life, and Hephaestus working to protect its machines from humans are not malicious actions, just base programming. If this logic continues to be true, then would Demeter also become hostile towards the human population? Some might take the presence of the Red Blight as a sign that Demeter has indeed turned aggressive, perhaps lashing out at all manner of deforestation and other man-made projects that do not coincide with natural plant growth. This could indeed be the case of what's happening in the Forbidden West. However, I personally am not entirely sold on this conclusion. This poetry, these messages left in the flowers, why would Demeter choose to leave these traces of the ancient world? Though these subfunctions are now self-aware, they're not true AIs like Cyan, Gaia, or Vast Silver. They're limited by their original design and primary functions, never meant to operate outside of Zero Dawn parameters. This means that if it did wish to communicate, its options to do so would be limited. Hades was only given a voice through the aid of silence, and Hephaestus had access to Cyan's functionality, who does have speech capabilities. So if Demeter did wish to communicate some kind of message to whoever could interpret it, these poems may have been the only form of human language it had access to. If this is the case, then we have to examine these poems in a different light than we had previously. In our trailer breakdown, we discussed a few of these, including Mark 1A. Light of the moon, moves west, flower shadows, creep eastward. A haiku written by Yusabu Son, a renowned Japanese poet of the Edo period. It describes flower shadows moving east as the light of the moon moves west. This could be interpreted as illuminating a problem in the west, steadily making its way east, such as the Red Blight. We also highlighted the code fragment Mark 2F, titled The Mountain. I saw a mountain, its haughty peak and bunched spine vying the worlds on high, deflecting every salvo of the wind and shouldering the starlight from the sky. brooding above the dunes like some great thinker considering days to come as nights go by, with black clouds wrapped about it for a turban and bangs of redhead lightning in its face, and through the night that tongueless mountain uttered marvelous things. At several points during the release trailer, we see these supercell storms looming in the skies, red lightning erupting from their epicenters. To me, these poems seem to parallel the events we're seeing take place, so much so, I find it hard to believe it's mere coincidence. Mark II-C, a section of the piece, A Dream to be Interpreted, also evokes imagery similar to the world of the 31st century. The dust of many crumbled cities settles over us like a forgetful doze, but we are older than those cities. We began as a mineral. We emerged into plant life and into the animal state, and then into being human. And always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring, when we slightly recall being green again. All the code fragments we discover seem to evoke imagery of nature and rebirth, some more hopeful than others. However, many take a more uneasy tone, foreboding in their content, leaving a sense of unease in the reader. Here is Mark II-B. The sky's face has turned dark. Don't believe a cloud has come. In the garden, snow changed the raven to a falcon of white. Oh, what designs might the magician of cold display? Like a mirror, the page of the water is bound in ice. To veer off for a moment, this fragment in particular also resonated with me, reminding me of the final prophecy of the Banuk shaman, Bryn, in the Acquired Taste questline. But no more stories of the past, all told, all done. Future stories. I saw an onrushing storm. The future comes hungry for man and machine. It will catch me, I expect. Catch us all. So enough hunts, enough visions. I'll run. Chase that teasing sun to the forbidden west. I don't understand, I mean, not that I ever understand, but are you saying we should fear what's coming? Oh, yes. Jungle on fire, machine blue light dying in the eddies of ashes, you fallen as pale as snow flash, eyes staring open. The metal world, but not the one I sought. The future is a frightful dream, huntress. All of Bryn's previous visions of the past prove to be eerily accurate, as does what he seems to believe is coming in the future, a vision that seems to also coincide with the code fragments. Hope and worry, destruction and growth. Cryptic, sure, but I can't help but feel Demeter is issuing a warning of what's to come, perhaps the only way it knows how. After all, if Demeter only wished for the destruction of humans to preserve plant life, why leave poems capable of translation by humans at all? Without more information concerning what specifically awaits Aloy in the Forbidden West, it's difficult to connect more dots than this. I personally hope that Demeter is willing to work with us to restore ZD to its intended purpose. As Aloy states to Cyan, an AI that makes flowers instead of death machines, that would be a nice change of pace. Before we close, there is one final point of note I found rather intriguing, if not entirely of consequence. Each of the poems derive from different points in history, as well as geographic location. Those in Mark I from Edo period Japan, Mark II are predominantly of Asian and Ottoman authors, while Mark III are English speakers from either the UK or the US. I mention this because this pattern parallels the primary spread of the Pharaoh swarm. The destruction beginning in the islands of the Pacific, moving its way across continental Asia and Europe, before ending in North America. Granted, this is not a 100% geographic match, and perhaps I'm simply reading way too deep into this, but I felt it worth mentioning. With Horizon's world so steeped in mystery, hidden clues, and buried symbolism, it never hurts to dig a little deeper. Demeter, will it be friend or foe? Do these poems point to a hidden message, or only its original programming? Hopefully these answers, as well as a cure to the blight, can be found in the knowledge of this subfunction. And that brings our journey to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you really like what we're doing here at the channel, join our community, hit subscribe, and ring that bell. Also consider supporting the channel on Patreon, so we can keep making quality content just like this. Check out the link in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep questing.